questions orales, oral questions, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said a lot of things to get elected, and now young Canadians are realizing that he doesn't have their back. His decisions have made it harder for them to buy a first-time home and creating a lot of anxiety over finding their first job. But worst of all, the money his government is borrowing means that a Canadian who turns 18 today won't see the budget balanced until they're 56 years old. That means an entire working life of higher taxes. Why is the Prime Minister making the youth of our country pay for his bad decisions?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with our Canada Child Benefit, we are lifting hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty across this country, reducing child poverty by 40%. For post-secondary education, we're guaranteeing they don't have to pay back any student debts until they're making $25,000 a year, and we're increasing by 50% Canada student grants for low-income and middle-income families. We're also investing in infrastructure, in research, in innovation, in post-secondary institutions to ensure that we have good jobs for these young people now and into the future. This is what building a strong country looks like, Mr. Speaker, and we'll stay focused on that.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, millions of Canadian workers will be forced to pay the Liberals' new tax on health and dental benefits. Many will lose their coverage and find themselves paying out of pocket for important expenses like life-saving medicines, mental health counselling, and their children's braces. It's not fair that the Prime Minister racks up billions of dollars in spending on his priorities, and now Canadians have to pay for it with a $1,000 new tax on their health and dental benefits. Mr. Speaker, why would the Prime Minister even consider doing this?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we got elected on a commitment to invest in the middle class, to support the middle class and those working hard to join it. The very first thing we did was lower taxes on the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%. We are committed to protecting the middle class from increased taxes, and that's why we will not be raising the taxes the member opposite proposes us to do.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's good news for the middle class then. But, Mr. Speaker, with the middle class is struggling...
Order. I know the members want to applaud the Leader of the Opposition, but we have to hear her question first. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what the middle class is worried about is being consistently overtaxed by the Prime Minister's spending. We now have a situation where young people looking to their future, people turning 18 today, will see higher taxes until they're 56 years old. So, Mr. Speaker, why would the Prime Minister continue down this path of massive deficits, massive debt, and burden the next generation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We made a commitment, Mr. Speaker, to invest in young people, to invest in our future. That's why historic investments in infrastructure, whether it be public transit, whether it be green infrastructure, whether it be social infrastructure like housing and childcare, these are things that are going to make our country better and stronger and create more opportunities for young people in the future. And to add to the list of things that we're doing to help young people, the strengthening of the Canada Pension Plan is going to leave young people better off down the line so they have money to retire, something the members opposite have always been against.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we know that it's a spending spiral that won't stop. And they're leaving deficits for future generations. They had talked about $10 billion during the campaign, and it's a lot higher, but we've heard him in English. Now we'd like to hear him in French. It's interesting to hear. In order to pay these expenditures, he's going to increase or put a tax on health and dental benefits. I'd like to hear the answer in French. Will there be a new tax on health and dental benefits? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, like everyone in this House, all members know full well, we have committed to helping the middle class and those working hard to join it. We cut taxes for the middle class and increase them for the 1% of the richest people. It was never in our plan to increase taxes as suggested by the member opposite.
Député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, there have been a number of discussions and difficult discussions with the provinces. And now the ministers in Quebec want to call the government to order, want to talk about softwood lumber, to get down to work and to take some action. Will the government do so? Will we see an agreement on softwood lumber for the workers in this sector? The Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since we took power on this side of the House, we have on many occasions met with provincial governments to talk about several issues. We reinforced the CPP. We created a framework to deal with climate change. We have historic agreements with the provinces. We're working with them on softwood lumber in order to resolve this matter with the United States. The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has abandoned his commitment. He has betrayed Canadians. A political party promises something in order to get elected and to appear progressive, but then once elected, they shamelessly break that promise. I would call that a massive political deception. What does the Prime Minister call it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past year, we consulted with hundreds of thousands of Canadians to hear their views on transforming our electoral system. It's very clear, as people in this House know, I have long preferred a preferential ballot. The members opposite wanted a proportional representation. The official opposition wanted a referendum. There is no consensus. There is no clear path forward. It would be irresponsible for us to do something that harms Canada's stability when, in fact, what we need is moving forward on growth for the middle class and support.
Honourable Member for Outremont.
The Prime Minister obviously never read the report, Mr. Speaker. The My Democracy charade didn't even ask Canadians if they wanted to change the voting system. But you know what? At almost every single one of the Prime Minister's town halls, someone asked him about democratic reform. So as the Prime Minister now fabricates evidence to claim Canadians didn't want what he got elected on, my question is, what expression from Canadians would have been sufficient to get the Prime Minister to respect his own promise?
Honourable Prime Minister.
It is very clear, Mr. Speaker, there is no consensus amongst Canadians on how or even whether to reform our electoral system and to change the mode of election. That's why we're going to focus on strengthening our resistance and resilience to cyber attacks from foreign interveners. Why we're going to be continuing to repeal the unfair provisions in the so-called Fair Elections Act, and why we're moving forward with greater transparency and accountability on the strong rules we already have on federal fundraising. We're moving forward in a way that will focus on the things that matter to Canadians. That is what Canadians elected us to do.
Honourable Député.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Cyber attacks. What about attacks on truth, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister always complains that the biggest problem in politics today is cynicism. Promising democratic reform to get elected and abandoning that promise right after they were elected is cynicism at its worst. Is he not ashamed? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know full well that I wanted to reform our voting system, but there is no consensus. There is no clear path forward, and having a referendum without that would be irresponsible. We can improve our democratic system in many ways, but it will not be by changing the voting methods. It's not simply by checking a box on an election platform that I will do something that is not good for Canadians.
D'Outremont.
90% in favor of proportional representation. That looks a bit like a consensus.
He made this promise hundreds of times during the election. He wrote it in his party's platform. He put it in his very first throne speech. You know what? They promised it 1,813 times since they got elected. That's the real number, Mr. Speaker. How can Canadians trust anything this Prime Minister has to say after he has so blatantly and intentionally betrayed his own word?
Contrary, Mr. Speaker, we spent a year listening to Canadians, talking with them, hearing from a broad range of views, seeing the firmly held views that a number of people feel on that, and understanding that there is no clear path forward, there is no consensus. A referendum would be a bad idea. Moving forward in a divisive policy would be a bad idea. The fact of the matter is, I am not going to do something that is wrong for Canadians just to tick off a box on an electoral platform. That's not the kind of the Prime Minister I will be.
Order, order. I know it's Wednesday. Members are exercised. But we need to hear the next question. The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was clearly not prepared for the new U.S. administration, nor was he prepared for how new policies in the United States would affect our economy. Now that our largest trading partner is committed to lower taxes and fewer regulation, this Liberal government needs to show Canadians that they're able to adapt to the new U.S. reality. When will the Liberals acknowledge that their tax and spend policy is making Canada sorely uncompetitive and putting Canadian jobs at huge risk of heading to the United States?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we came into office with a plan to focus on growing the economy, grow the economy for middle-class Canadians, for people who are feeling truly anxious about the prospects for themselves and their children. We move forward on that plan by reducing taxes. We've moved forward on that plan by making investments in the long-term future of our country. We are going to maintain our plan to grow our economy, and we are going to continue to engage with our partners in the United States to make sure that we have a strong and effective relationship with the Americans as we move forward in executing our plan for Canada.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals seem to have their collective heads in the sand. In order for Canada to remain competitive with the United States, we need lower taxes across the board and a regulatory process aligned with our neighbours. By refusing to deal with this new reality and instead adding more taxes to families and businesses, the Liberals are costing Canadian jobs. Can the Finance Minister tell us if there is any element of his fiscal policy that he is willing to change in order to respond to the new reality in the U.S. policy?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we want to be clear. We know that engaging with our neighbours to the south is critically important for our economy. We will do that in protecting Canadians' interests. What we will also do is focus on how we can grow our own economy so that Canadians can have good jobs. We will focus on making sure that middle-class Canadians have tax rates that are lower than they were in the previous government so that they can have enough money that they can pay for their children to do the things they want them to do. Mr. Speaker, we're focused on an economy that will be strong for Canada and dealing with global situations as they arise.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, on December 5th, I rose in this House for the first time to ask the Liberal government to not proceed with the Liberal tax on health and dental care. There were some 15 questions. We didn't get an answer, and it took them a long time to understand common sense. But there are other problems that need resolving. When we left power, we left the fiscal house in order. There was money. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has said that they should respect it. But if nothing changes, the Department of Finance has said that we won't balance the budget until 2055. What is the government's plan to avoid this real disaster? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the facts are very important. After 10 years, we started with a level of growth that is very low. We had more debt because of the previous government. That is the truth. Now, what did we do? We invested in our future in order to improve our growth. We cut taxes for the middle class. Those are the steps that we have taken in order to improve the situation of the country for the future. The Honourable Member. The Honourable Member knows that we left a $2.9 billion surplus. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, that the government took away a lot of tax credits that would help families, whether it be for textbooks, for post-secondary education, for arts, for sports. A few weeks away from the tabling of the budget, I would ask the Minister, will he stop the eliminating of tax benefits for Canadian families. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, once again, the facts are important. The situation is clear. With the Canada Child Benefit, we took steps that would help 9 out of 10 families put more money in their pockets, $2,300 after tax, for families with less money, for single-parent families, for someone earning $30,000 and children, it's on average $6,400. So it's truly better for families under our government.
Mr. Speaker, last month, a disabled grandmother told the Prime Minister as she broke into tears that she didn't know how she was going to continue to pay her hydro bill, which is broken over $1,000 a month. Now, a new carbon tax will make it more expensive for her to heat her home. Yesterday, the Finance Minister confirmed that he doesn't know what the middle class is. His budget says that the median income, though, is $50,000 a year in Canada. This party promised it would not raise taxes on the middle class or those working to join it. Can they confirm today that no one earning less than $50,000 a year will be asked to pay the Liberal carbon tax?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are pleased to talk about the situation of middle-class Canadians and those families that are struggling to get into the middle class, because we know that we've helped them in many, many ways since we've come into office. By lowering their taxes, an individual out of those 9 million, 330 on average, a family, $540 on average. More importantly, we've helped them in other ways. We've helped students, as the Prime Minister mentioned, in order to have a better situation with their situation when they have debt, that they can wait till they have $25,000 to pay it off. We've helped seniors by increasing the guaranteed income supplement. We know Canadians are better off today than they...
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Green Energy Act in Ontario has transferred $170 billion over 26 years from middle and working class people to the wealthiest 1%, probably the biggest wealth transfer in the history of this country. Now we have a carbon tax that will similarly land heaviest on the shoulders of those with the least. Mr. Speaker, we also know that that money will trickle down to well-connected Liberal so-called green insiders. It is not fair to tax people with these extra burdens who earn less than $50,000 a year. Can the Finance Minister do the right thing today and confirm that he will not impose his carbon tax on those earning less than the median income?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the party opposite, we understand that the environment and the economy go together. Canadians expect us to take action to reduce emissions, but also to grow our economy. I'm very proud about the climate plan that we were able to achieve with the provinces and territories, with Indigenous peoples. With respect to putting a price on pollution, which Canadians support, it is up to the provinces to determine which way to do it, and also what to do with the revenues. They can return the revenues through a revenue-neutral price on carbon. And we're going to continue working with the provinces to grow our economy and reduce emissions.
Honourable député de Rosemont.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, words have weight and meaning. And when someone gives their word is supposed to mean something. And today we're seeing a betrayal. The Prime Minister has changed his position. In the throne speech, in mandate letters, and the parliamentary committee have seen the situation change. People believed in good faith. They lied. They lied to Canadians. What is the Prime Minister's word worth? The Honourable Member knows that unparliamentary words are not allowed in the chamber. I would ask him to withdraw them immediately. Mr. Speaker, if they didn't lie, then they laughed in our faces. We will not be hearing from this member.
Valley.
Mr. Speaker, how sad it was to watch the minister herself, who admitted that the Liberals had won a false majority, yet she was the very one they sent out to break the very promise that would fix the problem. The Prime Minister promised to be different. He promised to bring more people into the democratic process. He promised to make every vote count, and he promised millions of Canadians that 2015 would be the last election under the outdated and unfair voting system. Will any Liberal from Vancouver, from Edmonton, from Winnipeg find the integrity to stand up to this blatant betrayal of Canadians that this Prime Minister has made?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, our electoral system is foundational to our democracy. We respect the views of Canadians and consulted extensively with them on this important issue. We listen to Canadians, and Canadians are proud of our democracy. We have always been clear. Major reforms to the electoral system should not be made if they lack the broad support of Canadians. As my mandate letter states, a clear preference for a new electoral system, let alone a consensus, has not emerged. Changing the electoral system is not in my mandate.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, Section 12 of the Conflict of Interest Act states no minister shall accept travel on private aircraft except in exceptional circumstances. The Prime Minister's trip was not a last-minute travel deal on Expedia.ca. There's plenty of planning involved when any minister travels. Significant numbers of people in the Prime Minister's office and the Privy Council office would have been briefed on the travel plans. Mr. Speaker, was the Prime Minister ever advised by anyone in the PMO or PCO that travelling by private helicopter would break Section 12 of the Act?
Honourable Government House Leader.
As has been previously stated, the Prime Minister was on a personal family vacation with a long-standing friend that he has known for a long, long time. As has also been stated time and time again, the Prime Minister will answer any questions that the Commissioner will have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister truly believed that his New Year's getaway didn't present ethical problems, he wouldn't have tried so hard to hide it. No one believes the Prime Minister wasn't advised his actions would lead to a clear breach of the ethics law. The Act is clear, Mr. Speaker, as clear as the Prime Minister's decision was to ignore it. Isn't it true the Prime Minister kept this a secret because he knew the Ethics Commissioner would have told him it violated the Act? Why does the Prime Minister think that he's above the law?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the member should be reminded that the Prime Minister was on a family vacation with a long-standing friend that he has known for a long, long time. As the member should also know, and has been stated time and time again, the Prime Minister will answer any questions that the Commissioner will have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Allard.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have never been as poorly served as with this Prime Minister who believes he is above the law. In addition to undermining the confidence of Canadians in our democracy, investigations on ethics are revolting because they all have something in common. They serve the interests of the Liberal Party of Canada. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister admit that he lacked a judgment by using the Aga Khan's private helicopter and finally get down to work for the benefit of all Canadians? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, our government is working for all Canadians, and as has been mentioned, the Prime Minister was on a family vacation with a long-standing friend, someone he has known for a very long time. Allow me to mention as well, to reiterate, that the Prime Minister will answer any question that the Commissioner has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the start of the new year, when he talks about his Christmas holidays, the Prime Minister tries to justify his lack of judgment. However, despite all of these verbal attempts at doing so, he realizes that he's violated Section 12 of the Conflict of Interest Act by taking this private helicopter on his vacation. Mr. Speaker, back in my neck in the woods, when it's got two webbed feet and it quacks, we call it a duck. Instead of hiding behind the Ethics Commissioner, will the Prime Minister finally admit that he broke the law? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as has been said on several occasions, the Prime Minister will answer all of the questions that the Commissioner has for him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sanik Souk.
Speaker, the Liberals said last year that LGBT refugees would be a priority among Syrian refugees as among the most at risk. Then they did exactly nothing. Now Trump's ban has placed LGBT refugees from 7 Muslim-majority countries at extreme risk. In all 7, being gay means living in fear of being put to death. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister the same question which he ignored in last night's emergency debate. Will the Minister take swift and specific action to facilitate asylum in Canada for LGBT citizens of the 7 countries who are now excluded from the United States and who risk death if sent home?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Canada can be proud of its tradition of being an open society that welcomes refugees. We have tripled the number of privately sponsored refugees. We've engaged with our American counterparts to make sure that the implications of the executive order are closely monitored. We continue to inform Canadians as we get updated daily. We'll continue to be a country that opens its hearts and its doors to those fleeing war and persecution.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act includes a safe third country designation, which allows for shared responsibility for refugee claimants. But only countries that respect human rights and which offer asylum seekers a high level of protection can be designated as safe third countries. Does the Prime Minister really believe that this applies to the United States when there is now a Muslim ban in effect? The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
The refugee system is recognized as being one of the most compassionate and generous systems in the world. The Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States enables both countries to better handle asylum claims made within both countries. Asylum seekers in Canada have access to a fair hearing at the Immigration and Refugee Board, and all cases are assessed based on their merits.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, Atlantic Canada faces a number of unique challenges in growing our economy and getting businesses to innovate and export. It needs targeted approach from all levels of governments to address these issues. I understand the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development was recently in the Atlantic region promoting an Atlantic-specific approach. Could he please update this House on this initiative?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from South Shore St. Margaret's for her question and her hard work. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the 32 outstanding MPs from Atlantic Canada for their leadership. It's because of their leadership we launched the Atlantic Growth Strategy last summer. And just last week in Nova Scotia, we announced progress on the immigration pilot project, which will increase levels by 50%. And I'd like to thank the Minister of Immigration for his leadership. We also targeted high-growth firms, which will create jobs for small businesses. And we also put forward an agreement to double the trade and investment strategy by $20 million, Mr. Speaker. We're delivering for Atlantic Canada, we're growing the economy, and we're creating good, quality jobs.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer-Lacombe.
So, Mr. Speaker, we know the Prime Minister thinks that the rules do not apply to people like him. One of the Prime Minister's vacation guests was Tom Pitfield, president of Liberal think tank Canada 2020. Now, Tom also happens to be married to the president of the Liberal Party of Canada, who coincidentally was also on the same vacation. But the problem is, Canada 2020 receives taxpayer dollars from this Liberal Prime Minister. So why do the Prime Minister's friends at Canada 2020 get privileged access to him and also taxpayers' money?
The Honourable Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, our government values science, and unlike the previous government, we will not politicize research. Social Science Humanities Research Council
Order. Order. Members are excited today. It's a Wednesday, but we need to hear both the questions and the answers. We need to try to remain calm. It's not easy to do, I know, but we can do it. I have great confidence. The Honourable Minister of Science has a few more 19 seconds.
The Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council aims to connect research with Canadians and therefore supports conferences and initiatives that promote the social sciences. The organization is an arm's-length body and has the authority to issue contracts of up to $25,000. As this contract falls below that threshold, the decision was made entirely by the organization. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Adair Lacombe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not surprising this Liberal government has so many ethical problems they don't even recognize an ethics question when they get one. Mr. Speaker, Canada 2020 received $15,000 of taxpayer money from this Liberal government, the same Canada 2020 that hosted exclusive events in Washington when the Prime Minister was there, the same Canada 2020 whose president is married to the Liberal Party president, the same Canada 2020 that boasted on Twitter earlier this week about new offices opening in the parliamentary precinct. So, Mr. Speaker, there's a pattern developing here. The conflict of interest is self-evident. Will the Prime Minister commit today that no more taxpayer money will be given to Liberal think tank Canada 2020?
Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, our government believes in the importance of independent, nonpartisan scientific advice. And unlike the previous government, we will not politicize scientific research. As I've mentioned, the organization is an arm's-length independent body and has the ability to issue contracts up to $25,000. As this contract falls below that threshold, the decision was made entirely by the organization.
Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, the Liberals are inventing new ways to waste taxpayer money. Canadians were astounded when the infrastructure minister spent $835,000 redoing his offices, but they were flabbergasted that the former Minister of Status of Women spent $1.1 million to furnish a new office. Having visited her previous office, which was perfectly adequate, I want to know why the taxpayers' hard-earned dollars were wasted on this unnecessary extravagance.
The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honour to serve as the Minister for Status of Women with a government that's put gender equality at the heart of its priorities, with a Prime Minister who is a feminist in words and in actions. Mr. Speaker, previous to this Prime Minister's leadership, there was no full Ministry of Status of Women. The staff needed a place to work, Mr. Speaker, and I'm so proud that the public service as well as the ministerial team are on the same floor. This was a responsible use of dollars, and we will continue to deliver on behalf of all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Minister doesn't want to redecorate. You can buy 4 condos in Ottawa for the same price the minister spent furnishing her new office. While seniors can't pay their hydro bills and veterans go homeless, the Liberals keep wasting Canadian money. Will the Prime Minister put a stop to this entitled, ridiculous, lavish spending and start focusing on the needs of real Canadians?
Order. The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of neglect by the previous government, we're finally making progress to ensure that people of all genders have equal opportunities to thrive. The decision to have both ministerial staff and the public service on the same level was important. It's important to reduce silos across all sectors, including our own. We will continue to deliver positive results on behalf of all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, a week ago, New Brunswick was struck by a terrible ice storm. Today, 13,000 homes are still without power and heat in the middle of February. The emergency shelters in Misco, Shippagan and Lamec are still overflowing. Monday, I asked the Minister of National Defence to explain why it took 3 days to deploy troops to the province following the request. No answer. My question for the Minister of Public Safety is this. The federal government acted without delay after the Fort McMurray wildfires and the floods in Calgary and Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. Why does New Brunswick have to wait? Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, just as soon as we were contacted by the government of New Brunswick, the government of Canada acted promptly on each and every request.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavik, EU.
Mr. Speaker, Marcia Brown Martel was taken from her Indigenous birth parents, declared dead, handed over to be adopted by non-Indigenous parents. The removal of children to eliminate their race is an act of genocide, Mr. Speaker. Over 20,000 survivors of the 60s scoop are now seeking justice. The minister has declared that her government will be adversaries no more. Well, if so, when will her government stop fighting them in court and make reparations for these typical historic wrongs?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to say that we are adversaries no more and that negotiation rather than litigation is our government's preferred route to settle these differences and right historical wrongs. That's why our government today is launching negotiations towards a national resolution to the 60s scoop litigation. Several parties have already expressed interest in these discussions, and I hope that all parties will participate. The 60s scoop is a dark and painful chapter in our history. Resolving these cases is an important step in our journey of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Constable David Wynne was shot and killed in the line of duty by a career criminal out on bail because his criminal record was never presented at the bail hearing. Now there's a bill before this House that would close the bail loophole that cost Constable Wynne his life. The Prime Minister's cabinet would obviously have discussed it. So it was disturbing when the Prime Minister said at a town hall that he didn't know anything about this bill. Now that he's had time to catch up with his work, will he instruct his caucus to support Wynne's law?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first off, I'd like to extend my deepest sympathies to the family of Constable David Wynne and especially to his widow, Shelley McInnes Wynne. We are committed to ensuring an effective and efficient bail system. The Minister of Justice will continue to collaborate with the provinces and territories and consult stakeholders who use these important criminal code provisions every day.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to the Prime Minister to translate that back for me. This is a very, very simple change in the criminal code. Right. This career criminal was out on bail because his criminal record was never presented at the bail hearing. Simple. It's very simple. It's a small loophole that can be closed if this bill is passed. So I appreciate his words. They mean a lot to the family, I'm sure. But what would mean even more is if he passed this bill. So will he say yes or no? Will he instruct his caucus to pass this bill?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would echo the words of the Prime Minister, extending our deepest sympathies to the family of Constable Wynne. We are committed to conducting a comprehensive review of the criminal justice system, including bail reform. That is why I continue to engage with my counterparts in the provinces and territories to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the justice system, ensuring we keep public safety at the top of our mind, and certainly we agree with the objective of this legislation in terms of ensuring that information is made available to make necessary decisions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I have another question for the Prime Minister. One of his Liberal members, the member for Beaches East York, thinks that the Prime Minister isn't going far enough when it comes to legalizing marijuana. He wants the Prime Minister to, and I quote, decriminalize all drugs. There's a good reason that all drugs aren't legal, and that's because they ruin the lives of our loved ones. So, will the Prime Minister unequivocally denounce the comments that his Liberal colleague made and immediately commit to Canadian families that he will not put our youth at risk in legalizing tough, hard drugs like heroin and cocaine?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government is committed to evidence-based policy. Unlike the previous government, that is why we support safe consumption sites and want to do everything we can to protect Canadians from the ongoing opioid crisis. We have committed to legalizing marijuana, but we are not planning on legalizing anything else at this time.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Belin. Order. Mr. Speaker, on January 16th, the Minister of Families announced a major investment in Laval of $400 million along with the province of Quebec for social housing. Can the Minister please tell the House how this investment in social housing will help vulnerable people across Quebec, including children living in poverty, seniors, and the victims of family violence? while at the same time stimulating the economy. The Honourable Minister of Social Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to say, first of all, my congratulations to the member for Alfred Pelin for his excellent question and for the important work that he has accomplished on behalf of his fellow citizens. Our government is proud to have signed an agreement for an additional $300 million for social housing in Quebec. Quebec will be able to invest this money in priority projects chosen by the provinces to help the most vulnerable in their communities. We are looking forward to continuing to work hard for the middle class and for all those who are also working very hard to join it.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, it's a new year and a new minister, but employees of the Vegreville Immigration Case Processing Centre are still reeling. In response to my order paper question, the department said closing the centre involved, quote, extensive consultation with another government department, but of course not with the employees of the town or local businesses. In fact, zero consultation with anyone who will actually be impacted. Will the new minister do what his predecessor refused to do? Reverse this heartless decision and save these rural jobs.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very, very happy to let the member opposite know that I spoke to the mayor of Vegreville a few weeks ago. That's an example of outreach. That's an example of me letting the mayor tell me the concerns of the community. We are aware of the impacts on staff and families of this relocation. I want to assure the member opposite that all current employees in the Vegreville Case Processing Centre will have their jobs in the new location. Thank you.
Honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, frontline workers are decrying the lack of action from the Liberal government to end violence against women. They're calling the government's progress to date a massive disappointment. There needs to be an immediate increase in funding for shelter operations. No woman or child should ever be turned away when fleeing domestic violence. When will the Liberals create a national action plan to end violence against women as promised to the United Nations?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for her commitment to this work. As a fellow Trent University alumni, I'm looking forward to working on this file together, and I'm happy to say that our government's fully committed to addressing gender-based violence so that women and girls can live free of violence. That's why we're developing a strategy to address this. Our government's engaged with experts, with academics, with civil society, and with those with lived experiences. Our investments in shelters and transitional housing will allow women to live safe and free from violence. Unlike the previous government, we're working to create the conditions to ensure that Canada is a place...
The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle Fortin. Mr. Speaker, last summer, 148 young people and employers in my riding of Marc-Aurèle Fortin benefited from the Canada Summer Jobs Program. Can the Minister of Employment please tell this House, or rather give this House more details about the 2017 edition of the program? The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague from Marc-Aurèle Fortin for his question. I am very happy to inform this House that employers have until Friday to submit their applications to hire a student this summer. This is an excellent opportunity to offer work experience to dynamic and enthusiastic students and to maintain growth in our economy. Thank you.
Honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, I was recently approached in relation to the inadequate level of mental health support for soldiers at Garrison Petawawa. The Liberals have let the number of mental health providers drop so low that the soldiers at Garrison Petawawa are forced into group sessions instead of one-on-one therapy. What is it going to take for this Prime Minister to restore the levels of mental health support for the soldiers and the people who serve in Canadian Armed Forces so that they once again have patient-centered treatment?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the care and welfare, and especially the mental health of our troops, is extremely important given what we asked them to do. We are looking at all the aspects of what's lessons from the past and what's happening now. As part of the defense policy review that we took last year, this is a very big component, and I can assure you that moving forward, and the resources have been put in place now and into the future, we will definitely be making sure that all our troops have the mental health resources for them. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, quote, within 18 months of forming government, we will introduce legislation to enact electoral reform. Close quote. That's from the Liberal platform. It's very clear, and it was repeated with clarity in the speech from the throne, and the mandate to us as members of the special committee said we were replacing first past the post. So if it was an essential precondition to following this promise that there be some sort of nationally proven majority, that there be some consensus discerned through vague surveys, why was that never mentioned in any promise or any mandate?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Anything a Prime Minister or a government must do must be in the interest of Canada and of all Canadians, particularly when it comes to transforming our electoral system. I understand the passion and the intensity with which the member opposite believes in this, and many Canadians mirror that passion and intensity. But there is no consensus. There is no sense of how best to do this, and quite frankly, a divisive referendum at this time, an augmentation of extremist voices in this House, is not what is in the best interest of Canada.
I understand that the Honourable Member for Rosemont La Petite Patrie has a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I was guilty of unparliamentary language because I was overly passionate, and I wish to apologize.
I thank
the honourable member.
Tabling of documents.